Welcome to the Uncommon Woman Network, a talk show network of the uncommon, unlikely chosen generation, where a radical space and collective opens unceasing pursuit that calls forward the significance waiting for you. Listen, I'm your show host, Jessie Liv, direct leader of Dallas Lighthouse Revival Training Center, planted in Central South Dallas of Texas, founder of Liberate the Flame International, owner and CEO of Liv Company, a 5-year flourishing kingdom store and business. I'm a world travel itinerant speaker and mama to my most favorite person in the entire world, my Lily Grace. So listen, welcome to your next mark and your new beginning of the uncommon destiny that is on your life. Welcome to episode 1. First off, I want to say this. This is most likely not going to be like any other network, podcast, or show that you're used to seeing, or that you have seen, or that you can compare anything to. And I don't say this on the cliche basis of the name of this show. However, I will say it will be the most diverse thing that you have seen or heard in the category of a talk network. All explaining the ranges from life-changing lessons, life-altering pivots, igniting prayer, down to interviews with heard and unheard of voices. Listen, we're breaking the mold of all of it, and we're coming ready. Well, we're ready. Ready to make you ready and seeing why the narrative on your life had to run its course. It was absolutely paving a story to your today. There are a million different ways that I'm sure we could target where we're going to go today, but I feel it's necessary to talk about the legendary testimonies that went before us in one common denominator that was the crucial, vital part of it all, and that's God. I can't talk about anything else other than the God-given purpose that came from a specific story or a different narrative without God in the middle of it. So for this to be discussed in any other way or blueprint outside of God would be pointless, because this is about the uncommon exploits of a God generation. Okay? There are hundreds of people that I could talk about today that I would love to share. But just in these 15 to 20 minutes, the short time that I have with you, can we go there? I want to go there. I want to just dialogue about some incredible legendary people that are biblically and scripturally known for their insignificance, for their radical, legendary, world-marking, history-changing crossroads that came from a radical, insignificant story. Their narrative was the polar opposite from the dynamic that, what was the divine change agent? God brought in through his divine hand. So we're going to dynamically go down just a short, brief listing of these radical people that I read about daily. And it is like water to my thirst. It is like bread to the spiritually hungry. And I believe that it's going to bless you today. Jochebed. Now, we don't hear that name often at all biblically, but she is indeed mentioned one time. My God, one time biblically. And she was the mother of 3 radical leaders of an Exodus generation. That sounds profound. If we couldn't go any further than just discussing that part, that element of her, I think that that's enough. 3 leaders of an Exodus generation. A woman whose name was recorded truly and surely only one time. She was insignificant to society, unheard of until one divine moment where a nation would be under siege by a captive taskmaster with indeed a genocide ambition. To do what? To murder the firstborn of every woman that was male. Now, this is what we call the King's Edict. And this is what the scriptural synopsis taglined Exodus chapter 2. Now, I'm not going to give you a biblical history lesson. That's not where we're going today. I'm not going to preach it down and give you a whole teaching, equipping moment. But what I will do is share these prominent things about these individuals that will absolutely relate to where you came from and the reason why you battled so hard and the rages of just the surrounding winds and the waves of your storm, so that you can put vocabulary to your life and articulate exactly what's been going on. So listen, her sacrifice and decision to heed the purpose crying out in her belly would become history's crossroad. It says this, but when she could no longer hide him, she got a basket made of reed, waterproofed it with tar. She put her son Moses into the Nile River, entrusting him to God in a way that he would find his way back to her at the divine appointed time. So a birth in a time and in an era of terror's backdrop became a nation's liberation. The narrative was chaos, was havoc, cruelty, loss, severity. But she completely re-altered her purpose and history by saying one thing to herself: what was on the inside of her would live. I need you just to hear that one more time. Can I put that on repeat? By saying what was on the inside of her, prophetically and spiritually speaking, the seed of her destiny would live. Now, in this moment that she would make this decision in the valley of decisions, she crossed cultural barriers, made cultural barriers break amidst slavery, and positioned the forecomer of the deliverer in place. She not only made a choice to honor the purpose inside her, but she radically positioned the thing that she was carrying in its seat to prevail in its purpose. So do you see that your purpose is attached to another person's purpose that's attached to another person's purpose? That when you make the decision to agree that you're not going to let the narrative murder what you carry, that indeed you will help aid the very thing that you were created to do, to live and to continue in your legacy. Oh, we're not done yet. We're not stopping there. Mary Magdalene, a whole other person, a whole other, I hate to call them stories because they're testimonies. This is a testimony. I never allow my daughter to say that these are Bible stories. Why? Because they're not stories. They're not fictional. I tell everybody under my care, under my ministry, I say this: none of this that we discuss ever is a story. It's a testimony. This actually happened in time and continues on with the desire to happen again. That's the power of testimony, is because it wants to continue to happen. All right, that was just a bonus round. Mary Magdalene, an unnamed and unclaimed individual. Listen, so much so that she was named after the city that she lived in. Nobody claimed her. She had no documentation, no birth certificate, no family that would come and say she belongs to us. She is part of us. She was so isolated, so downcasted, so tossed to the side that nothing and nobody and no place of origin would claim her. That the people in her city didn't even know her name, that they would call her by the name of the city that she resided in, that she was walking around, that she was visiting, that she was in occupancy to, and she was called Mary of Magdala. Now, I don't know where your origin is. I don't know if you have a mama or a daddy or if you don't. But that narrative cannot stop the divine purpose that is on the inside of you. That would be the one person in and throughout history, biblically, that we find in the front line of every major preparation of Jesus. She was the first and foremost that literally was called and seen on the front row, running towards God in his most prime hour of preparation. She was hurling herself at his feet, preparing him, making him ready for the next divine hour. She was readying the kairos of the living Christ. Wow. Wow. She was preparing the opportune time of Christ's advancement. Now that's significant coming from somebody that doesn't even have a known name, that doesn't even have a family, that doesn't even have anything to claim her, of an invisible woman, completely invisible to the culture, unpopular, not even known to even formulate if she had any type of reputation other than just a woman of the streets. Because that's the only place she was found, typically, if she wasn't with God. Ruth, the one that lost it all. Now, I love this story of Ruth because this can pinpoint every single place of our loss and depravity, grief, moments of sorrow where we're grieving, where we're burdensome, but yet we find ourselves in the valley of choice where we have to make a decision to either agree with the lack or press on and break ground in another place and in another season in a brand new territory. And that's exactly what Ruth did. She embarked to set her foot out with her comrade, Naomi. Now, everybody left Naomi and Ruth. Ruth was the only one that decided to stay with Naomi, and they would break through the gates of Bethlehem. And it says at the first moment of Scripture, it says that they entered the gate of Bethlehem, and the entire town was in an uproar. An uproar means a radical noise. People were looking left and right, wondering who these women were that came and entered the city at the hour of the greatest harvest. The barley harvest, in fact, is what it says. They were radically positioned. When? Because they decided to leave the familiar narrative, to break out into another place, to proceed a horizon that would build a story of purpose in God. And that's the first thing that Ruth said to Naomi. She says, I will go where you go. I will lodge where you lodge. Lest you die, there I will die. The God that you believe in, so therefore I will believe in him. And I will go and I will believe in what you believe. You see, it was the reminder to Naomi that the fruit before the grief impacted Ruth, that she would call back that measure of faith back to Naomi when she felt she had nothing. She kept telling Ruth and her other daughter-in-law, she kept telling them both, I have nothing for you. I have no other husbands for you. I am just an old woman with nothing to give. Move on. Go somewhere without me. Journey out. I will stay here. You go. And that's when Ruth made the most courageous decision to stand next to her side, because there was more on the horizon. And what was on that horizon? They would find favor in the sight of one man that not only had his own empire, but recovered the land of Ruth's entire inheritance. Right when Ruth would begin to meet Boaz, they would begin to just find a stranger walking and moseying along. And Boaz said to the man, hey, I have someone for you. You can make her your own if you gather the rest of the territory of her kinsmen. And he said, no, you have it. Because there was only one person that could orchestrate and transport the exchange of Ruth's inheritance. And it was divinely given to Boaz. You see, when you show up by faith to a new land and you raise the courage to go into a new area, beyond familiarity, the places of your security and your comfort, and you choose to trust the purpose within you that's uncommon, that's unlikely, that's unheard of, and that does not strike the chord of everything else that's happening around you and with everyone else that's happening around you, you will find your people. You will find your moment and your window of opportunity that would break open your harvest like never before. Now, I'm not just here to talk about women. I'm here to also talk about the impact that some of the most profound warriors went forth in the word. Joseph, hated by the ones that he loved, betrayed by his own blood. running his way through survival. Everybody wanted to steal his coat of many colors. Everybody wanted to tear down the places that he shined and steal and take his inheritance, only to find himself from survival into a moment of a pit and a prison. He was sought after in that defining moment. Here comes another precipice of purpose. Something insignificant, something running a mess, in havoc, in destruction, in battle, and in affliction would come to one moment. The moment for which he was born. The moment in which God had appointed him favor. Every moment of destiny that has preceded trial comes to a gate of favor that transports you from one place to the next place, causes you to exit one season, one narrative, and enter into a divine rewritten story of restoration. And this happens verbatim, like a protocol of heaven's destiny. Every single person that went forth. That's why I feel it's so important to talk about God's most important people of his word, because he set out a familiarity, a similarity is a better word, of destiny and what the laws and the principles and just the physics of how he operates is by divine setup. Now Joseph finds himself in front of the wicked ruler, asking him to interpret his dream. Now Joseph had a God-given interpretation for this dream, because it was a God-given dream, oh my gosh, that God gave to a wicked ruler that will prophesy and speak all day, every day. That God would give a wicked ruler a dream that only a God person could interpret. And because Joseph had a reputation for the Lord, he knew exactly where to go, and he knew exactly who to turn to interpret his dream. Joseph ends up confirming many, many things throughout his life, throughout his dream. And in that witness, because every revelation comes with a witness, and sometimes the seed of your revelation will witness with somebody's seed that only you can touch, that only you can grasp, that only you are authorized to minister and witness to. And because of that, it opens up a plethora of opportunity. Do you see the setups of sometimes your prisons or your divine entrances to new doors, new breakthroughs, and new moments of uncommon favor through uncommon exploits, all by which came from an uncommon seed of an uncommon narrative? And in this moment, we literally see that Joseph is appointed over this Pharaoh's house, given all his land, and even appointed the resource that only all of Egypt will be able to gather and confide in the last days. Your journey hasn't been the problem. The journey has been fortifying your testimony of an uncommon thing, designed by the finger of God to drastically change the protocol of everything around you, break the boxes, tearing down the walls, completely remodeling and rebuilding and reestablishing something that only the purpose and the seed on the inside of you can articulate, that only you can become the vehicle to get this position, this assignment to the place it's got to go. Listen, your assignment has a place it's got to go. Your purpose, the way you talk it out, the way you move it out, the way you speak it out, all of these attributes of how you were tailored to bring it forth, to deliver it and make it known, is completely set up by a divine interface of each and every little detail, wrapped in intentional purpose for the execution and the delivery for the moment you were born. The prisons, the mess, the isolation, the setbacks, the assassination attempts on all the areas that you shined, your coat of many colors, all the loss and the courageous decisions you've had to make alone, when ain't nobody knew what you had to go through, when nobody was there to help you decide. Oh my God, those world-shaking decisions that are so heavy, so dark, so difficult, that you just pray and hope on a prayer you made the right choice in the will of God, were divinely set in motion. Ruth was actually gazing in the field. Can I talk about it? Ruth was gazing in the field with the threshing of the grain. What this entailed, if you know anything about the history of the farmers back in this day and age, was this. The farmers would actually leave the scraps of the grain for the less fortunate and the poor to actually come and thresh out so that they could have the remains of what was left. So Ruth, we actually see in the field, in the circumstance and limitation of lack, brazing a horizon that she knew was more. So though she was in this current situation and this current position, she was actually looking ahead, finding and looking for a place that God was calling out to her purpose that was indeed the more. Financial increase, business strategy, and world-shaking change. I'm going to end with this. Regardless of where you started, regardless of where you currently are, it's all the narrative that something else that was circumstantial tried to form and formulate. But God orchestrates it in such a way where He is using it to write your story in business, in innovation, in creativity, in a restart, in a better new beginning, and a brand new season. All of it is set up so that you can be victorious. So I just want to bless you with this today. And as we carry out our next episode, episode 2, that you would reflect on these things, these common denominators that are indicators and similarities of your story, of where you currently are now, and that you would take that into consideration for your portion to where you're going, because it hasn't ended here. It's just indeed beginning. I'll see you in the next episode.